you've actually written the most songs in the last 4 years of anybody at Sony other than Ashley Gorley. That's crazy. Did you know that?
They had like mentioned that I had written more. I didn't really think about it too much. I thought it was like, I was like, that's awesome. That's really cool. But I just kept writing. I feel like I just.
What was your why?
Why? Like, why did I write? Or like,
why were you the one that wrote the most songs?
I feel like if I don't write, I go crazy. Like, it keeps me a little bit sane. And I know that sounds so cliche, but I just, if I don't write during the day, I feel like I'm not doing something, and God gave me this opportunity to be here, so I should just keep doing it. And now it's providing for family, and I feel like the more you write, the more opportunity that is to be seen, or your song to be seen, and just the more times you can do it. I mean, there's more songs, so there's more opportunities, more tools to have number ones or have cuts. And
like Tom Douglas was saying, basically, like for him, he equated it to, if I've written over 5,000 songs and you deduce it like you would in sales, like I'm going to close X amount of cold calls.
Yeah.
Like it's the same thing in songwriting. The more you do the more chances you have. Yeah. So, and then at the time of this recording of this podcast, we're not jinxing, we're just speculating. We're projecting. Our projections show that next week, Weren't for the Wind will go number one.
Hopefully, by the grace of God.
It's going to.
It'll go.
So that's going to be your first number one, which is really exciting. How do you feel about that?
I'm super stoked. And I don't know, it's crazy to even think of, I don't know, having songs on the radio, because I dreamed of having that. And so to have that opportunity is mind-blowing to me. 18-year-old me would be freaking out.
Yeah. Is it weird how it's like once you get to this point, it's mind-blowing, but it's like not as crazy as you thought it would feel?
That is another side of it.
The younger, like if the 18, I think about that a lot. Like if the younger version could see where you are now, they would be like, wow.
She would be like mind blown. But
once you get there,
and it's not as, I don't know, I don't want to put a damper on it, but it's not everything you hoped and imagined kind of thing. I don't know, you think there'd be fireworks going off or something when you have a song on the radio or you're number one, and then it's not as crazy as you think.
Is part of it just going through the trenches?
I think so. I think and it's still really cool and it's still unbelievable. But I think just, going through the trenches makes it not as crazy.
Because would you say calloused? Beat up? Thick skin?
Thick skin, maybe. Yeah.
How, and like,
but then you think about it and you're like, it's crazy.
It is, yeah.
Well, I guess by the time you get there, you've worked for it, that it's like that mentality that they give you of just like on to the next kind of mentality. But that's not a good mentality to have. But that's kind of the mentality you end up programming your brain to go into from writing so much.
I'd love to know the number, if you know, of how many songs you've written in the last 4 years.
The past 4 years? I have no clue. Let's just say 200 times 4 would be.
Okay, so 800 songs?
800.
Give or take?
Give or take, yeah.
Do you feel like there was some years you wrote more than 200?
Yeah, probably.
So that could be even pushing 1,000?
We'll say like 900.
Okay. So 900 songs in 4 years. I think that's, for listeners, might be great. Like, they're like, wow, 900 songs. And my question is, like, for the song Weren't for the Wind, let's say, going number one, when you wrote it, were you like, this is a number one, or this is a really cool song, I like it, on to the next one?
No, when we wrote it, I feel like we all kind of, when the song was done, we kind of all knew that, not that it would be a hit or anything, but we all were like, we love this song. And it was one that I left that retreat or that bus run thinking like, I got a song that I love. And that's all I like look for going out on retreats or bus runs or in a writing room. I just want to write a song that I love, regardless of the outcome of it. And then the next day I want to write another song that I love. And sometimes I write songs that I don't love, but that one I loved.
Have you had any that you don't love that have done things?
I've had songs that got cut that I didn't love.
Was it a surprise?
That it got cut?
Yeah.
The songs I didn't love? I think so. Yeah. I'm not going to say the song, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably normal. I've heard a lot of the stories of, it was like I got a call or whatever that so-and-so was cutting the song and it was just another day and another write. And like, it was very successful or whatever. Just like, you don't know what or when.
Yeah. Well, and you're so grateful because you're like, well, that was, you created it. And regardless of the outcome of it, it's still something you created with other people. And it's still was a magical day to even do that.
Yeah. Did you do a lot of two-a-days?
When I first got signed, I did. And then before I was signed, I did a lot of two-a-days.
What would you say to the person that just got signed that feels like they have to prove themselves, but they're almost like they're working 7 days a week and it's not sustainable to write 100 songs in 3 months?
Just give yourself a break, probably. Like, you're creating something out of nothing. I mean, literally out of thin air. And it's supposed to be fun, too. I feel like I wish I could go back and remind myself that sometimes, too. It's supposed to be fun. Like, we get to make music for a living.
So in hindsight, what else would you tell yourself?
That God's got a plan and it works out. Because I feel like there were a lot of times I questioned what I was doing and why I was doing it. And I'd forget what I moved here for and lose sight of God. And I just wish I would just tell myself that it all works out. Even if, there's things that you hoped would work out the other way. It all works out like for a reason, the way it's supposed to.
What was your definition of success when we met? What would you say it was?
I just wanted to make, a living doing music was what I wanted to do. Whatever that looked like. I wanted to be able to provide for myself doing this and for the family I hope to have one day.
Okay. Has your definition of success changed?
It hasn't changed in a sense of I just want to be able to do this for a living, and I'm grateful that I get to do this every day for a living.
Yeah.
And obviously I want to have hits and all of that, but just the fact I get to wake up every day and get to do this is freaking awesome. It's crazy.
How is it balancing, because you mentioned God, how's it balancing like making God your God versus making your career your God?
I actually heard in a podcast, it might have been a Tom Douglas podcast, or I think it was him, but he always says you can't create without the creator. And that's something that's always like stuck to me after hearing that. And I think that's true. As like, if I didn't have God, I would have a harder time doing this, or at least from where I am, I would have a harder time doing this. And there are days when sometimes that can idolize my job. And I think that it's easy to do, especially in this career, is like you put this before God, you put this before your family sometimes, you put this before yourself sometimes. And I think I just have to remind myself that this isn't my identity, it's what I get to do every day. And that's what I try to remember. Because I'll end up being like, this is me. This is who I am. If I don't write a good song or something, then I've failed as a human being. And that's just not true. I didn't write a good song. And there's another day to write another song.
Are the emotional blows a little less significant now in terms of feeling like the song wasn't good at the end of the day? Are you like, whatever?
They've definitely gotten better.
They've gotten better?
There are some days where it's like, oh, shit, like I wish I would have been a better song. But it's definitely gotten better where I'm not so what,
Yeah.
What, didn't change anything in my life that I wrote a bad song.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things I've heard recently, it was a podcast, but it was a guy, Alex Hormozy, and he's just like an interesting entrepreneur, but he talked about having a cosmic perspective. And his view of life's quite grim, and he doesn't have, I don't think, a spiritual faith. But he was like, in 3 generations, nobody's going to remember who you are.
Yeah.
And he's like, basically saying how I tell myself that a lot of times because I get so wrapped up in thinking X, Y, and Z is so important. And it impacted me to think about that because having a 2-year-old and being married and being a dad has brought a whole new purpose into my life that I never imagined before, where I thought, like when we met, I was like, oh, if only this will happen. And if only this will happen, then it'll be good enough. Then I'll be good enough. Do you feel like you have those feelings even now where you think, okay, I climbed this mountain. Let's say you have your first number 1 with Ella. Is there this part of you that's like, okay, what's the next mountain to climb?
I think there's still that part of me of like, okay, what's next? And I don't feel like that's a healthy part, but I feel like there's definitely that part of me. But there's also I think that it's not unhealthy, but just I'm trying to teach myself how to also be grateful in the moments and instead of getting to them and skipping over them and being like, okay, let's climb this next mountain.
What does that look like?
Being grateful. I think just celebrating, whether it's just like being proud of what I've done and not being thanks, like it's okay, like it's cool, like just being like, hey, it's okay to be proud of yourself too. And I think sometimes I forget that that's okay. And I don't know, just being at home and being happy with it. I don't have to go get drunk to celebrate. And I used to do that too. And there's nothing wrong with doing that too. But I think just patting myself in the back and just being like, good job.
Is that more an internal voice?
Yeah, more internally, just being proud than I feel like there was like this battle, like especially when I first moved here and even when I first got signed of like, is like if I'm proud of myself, then I'm not being humble. Or if I'm proud of myself, then I don't know, jinxing it. I don't know. It's always that weird thing. And so I think just now just being okay with saying you did a good job, regardless what that looks like.
So when you told me about the book, The Secret, I went and I read it. And it was interesting because we'd have these conversations. I was big into journaling, still journal, not as much as I did, but it's really cathartic for me. But I used to write in my journal, this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and this is going to happen. But also from meeting you in 2019 to now, I realized how much is out of my control.
Yeah.
And I'm curious because you were a big fan of that. And I think that
I used to love that book.
Yeah, I think that me and you thought a lot alike when I first met you. And I'm curious, like, do you still think that way in terms of the like manifestation of the outcome?
I think I've switched a little bit, but I mean, like, I do think that I think that just comes from just thinking positive instead of like manifesting your life. I think God's already planned out your life for you. But I think that just there is something to being positive and seeing the positive and being like, okay, I don't know, like we used to talk about, like if you wanted to get a publisher, you write, I got a publishing deal. Like you write it in that way. I think I've just switched perspectives instead of manifesting. It's just like believing in yourself, being positive, and I don't know, trusting God with it instead of, I think at that time I was also trying to control everything and thought I could, and I couldn't.
Okay, that's awesome because I would write the same thing. And I would write like, I have a publishing deal with so-and-so.
Yeah, exactly.
And so what would you go back and write now?
If I could, like at that age, what would I go
No,
back?
what would the Joybeth Taylor of today write had she had the knowledge of what you have now at that point, like 6 years ago?
That's a good question. Probably I should have enjoyed where I was at more. And not that I didn't enjoy, I did, but I should have just been a little more chillax on it and just let myself enjoy it.
What would that look like with the pen, though? Would it be like, for me, maybe I would say everything's going to happen at the right time?
Yeah. I would just write it all works out.
Would you say that showing up is the common denominator for you in your life and success that you've had?
I think showing up's, a big part of it. Just wherever you get asked to do or wherever you're, someone's like, hey, do you want to do this right? Just saying yes. And it's like this podcast. I was nervous to do this podcast. And it's like, hey, do you want to do it? It's like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll try it. It's just like, I don't know, just showing up and just doing it, even if you're there. Because fear, I feel like for a long time played a big part in my life where I just wouldn't do things because I was scared. And I've tried to work on that more and more. And yeah, I think showing up's a big thing.
Yeah, because correct me if I'm wrong, but like you've struggled with anxiety?
Yeah, anxiety a lot. And yeah.
Me too. I think that we talked about this years ago. I can't rehash all our combos because it's been so long, but I know for like you have that and I have that and a lot of people I meet and that I interview have that. And it's almost like the curse of the creative in a way. And it's almost like where genius comes from this place of also being kind of in agony. And it's almost like the tax of being able to turn nothing into something. Would you agree with that?
Like anxiety comes from like...
That there's almost, that it's like, it sucks, but it's almost somewhat of a prerequisite at times to be able to create something beautiful.
I think anxiety it can be helpful if used in the right way. To be creative and to push yourself. I don't know.
How do you use it in the right way? What does that look like?
I guess without, anxiety or mental health struggles and all of that I wouldn't have even gotten to songwriting. I feel like a lot of, like as a kid, I've started getting anxiety probably when I was like 7 or 8. And as a kid, like that's where I found my outlet for it. And I think without that, I'm grateful for it because I think without those things, I wouldn't have even dabbled in writing. And so...
Was the outlet being able to express how you felt?
Yeah. Well, just being, in my childhood home growing up, it wasn't always the most peaceful house. And so that was also a way for me to, which also caused a lot of anxiety. So it was a way for me to cope and kind of dissociate and be in another world.
Yeah. And it's weird how the stuff that we experience as a young kid, like my home was rather unstable emotionally. And those formative years really carry into your adult life and you don't realize it until you become older.
Yeah.
And you still deal with the same stuff that you dealt with as a kid.
Yeah.
And
never goes away.
Yeah, it doesn't. And it's interesting. But a friend of mine once said, like, with this podcast, I would get really nervous. I still do sometimes. And he said, you're going to be anxious. And it's okay to be anxious. In fact, if you weren't anxious, that would be a little weird.
I think you're anxious about things you care about.
Yeah. And I think that's a good thing. We just take it too far sometimes.
Yeah. We let it control us sometimes.
Yeah. And when you're thinking of outcomes that are all hypothetical, they haven't happened yet, then you're thinking and you're feeling a feeling of something that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
Do you know who Joe Dispenza is? He's like a guy that he's like a scientist, but he's a little woo-woo, but he talks about how basically you watch a scary movie, you feel scared. Well, if you think about a negative outcome, then you're going to like feel the feelings of that actually happening. Yeah. And one of the things that you said earlier really struck a chord with me and maybe my wife for me who's sitting in here because the being positive mindset is like almost rewiring of how you think about things.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've had to do a lot of self-work in changing your way that you think about things to kind of reframe them as positive?
I feel like I'm still doing that every day because it's so, just like you said, when you're anxious all the time, it's so easy to think negatively rather than positive. And so anytime I like start to have a negative thought, I try to just redirect it into just being like, okay, is this factual or am I making this up?
Yeah. Like even with the Ella thing, you're like, I don't want to jinx it. Right?
It's still that like negative thought process.
So your whole thing is like the self-protection. I don't want to get my hopes up and then be disappointed. So I would rather think that it's not going to happen or like.
But then think it is.
Then think it is.
Get disappointed, yeah.
Which is interesting because you could also completely reframe it and be like, it's going to happen. I know it because it's doing so good or whatever like evidence you would have to back that up. But either way, as you said earlier, you're not in control of the outcome. And I'm curious, is there a defining moment that really made you realize how out of control you were in terms of being able to create outcomes in life?
Like in music or just in general?
Just in your life.
I think I think that's where me wanting to be in control comes from, because I think I've always known that I was out of my control, whatever happens in life. Defining moment. I think my whole life is a defining moment of not being in control. But I guess really moving. I mean, when I moved to Nashville, I thought that it was just going to be this magical thing where you moved here and things happen. And the longer I was here, the more I realized that things don't just happen. And I'm in no control of when things happen or the outcome of things. And I think I've just had to learn more and more and more that it's not in my control. But I've always known that it wasn't in my control.
Learning more and more and more what does that look like? I'm curious when you say that. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? The more and more and more of realizing you're out of control.
Like of my life?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it stems from like my childhood. Like I thought I was I always wanted to be in control of where I was at. Like I would dissociate and try to be somewhere else. And, and I had no control of my parents or my house. And then when I moved here, I thought, well, I'm going to move to Nashville and I'm going to make this work as soon as I move here. And I'm in control of that. And then I moved here and I wasn't in control. I didn't start meeting with people till 21 and I moved here or didn't get it published till 21. And I moved here in 2016 and it didn't look like, I thought I was going to be an artist when I first moved here. And I thought I was going to be famous or whatever I had in my 18-year-old brain. And then it didn't work out that way, which thank God. And then, when I had my first song go to radio, I thought, this is it. This is going to go number one for me. And this is everything I've ever dreamed about. And then I think it stopped at 32 or somewhere in the 30s. And I was like, well, I'm not in control of that either. And then I realized the only thing I can do every day is do the best I can, whatever that looks like. If I'm writing a song, try to write the best song. If I'm cooking breakfast, try to just cook the best breakfast. If I'm running, try to do my best at running. Just anything I was doing, I was just like, okay, all you can do is your best. And that's all you're in control of. Mm-hmm. And I'm still learning that too, because every day, I mean, I feel like we all want to control what's going on in our lives.
Yeah, that's like the emotional duality of the anxious person.
Yeah. It's like, how can I grab the steering wheel and steer it the way I want to?
Yeah, it's like the part of you is like wants to control everything, and then there's this other side of you cognitively that's saying, you don't need to control it. You're not in control.
Yeah.
And everything in you is like,
yes,
I am in control.
I've got this.
I got this so hard, man. When it comes to songwriting, digging in a little bit on that side, we all want to know like tips and tricks, I think, especially for people that are younger, like, maybe like the 16-year-old you would listen to someone on a podcast like a Tom Douglas, or even listening to you now writing the most songs at Sony. They'd want to know, like, what can I do to improve my songwriting? And I was curious if there's some tips and tricks that you could provide that you've learned where there was a paralysis by analysis earlier in your career, and now you've almost like gotten into a flow state of this works, this doesn't. Can we like dive into a little bit of those topics?
Yeah. Honestly, I don't even know. Like I feel like I'm still learning. Like now, I mean,
I'll cue you with some questions.
Yeah, ask me some questions.
I'll get specific. So some people write from the hook. Mm-hmm. Do you do that?
Usually I like to have a hook first.
Okay. Explain what that could be. Like, let's just make one up.
Like if you're writing a song, like what are you writing to? Like what is your, where are you writing to? Like Weren't for the Wind. Like it's like what you're writing to Weren't for the Wind. What's the story? Where are you writing? Every line should write, in my opinion, to that.
So you had the title Weren't for the Wind.
Mm-hmm. We have the title and then
you're like, okay, Weren't for the Wind. Now you have to create a story around what Weren't for the Wind means.
Yeah. And then every line should write to the story.
And every line, should be pointing towards Weren't for the Wind. So let's just use that song as an example then, because I think it's a great song it's very visual. So here's one of the things that I've noticed in songwriting and just trying to get better myself is the senses. Like I didn't know that earlier in my life. How important do you think that is? Like the taste, touch, feel, smell. What does it look like? Where am I at? What time of day is it? All of those little things.
I think it's important in a song to use your senses. Also, I'm just like I write songs based off emotion a lot of times too. So I just kind of write what it feels like, I feel like, more than anything. And so the other senses are put in there, with what that feeling is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know if this is a fair question, but is there 3 or 4 writers on that song?
3.
3? You, Ella, and someone else?
Johnny Clausen.
Okay. Was there, because in writes, a lot of times someone's kind of leading the write. Mm-hmm. Were you leading that one?
I feel like we all were just, I don't know, that one was just like, it all like came out.
Yeah.
And we were on a bus run, and the artist that she was out with ended up canceling that run that weekend. And we were on this bus in like Idaho or something like that. And we'd already gotten out there. And that was like probably our 4th song we had written being out there, 3rd or 4th. And I think we wrote 5 or 6 that run. And that one we just all started. We had started it, or someone said it, and then it all just like started coming. It was a strange one.
It just wrote itself. It just wrote itself,
yeah.
Yeah. But back to pointing to that Weren't for the Wind. I'm going to pull up lyrics because it would be cool to dissect it, actually. I've wanted to do this on the show, and I never have because I've tried to keep it more about like the person that I'm interviewing. But I really feel like, especially because this is the 50th episode, which celebrating the wins. Woo woo. I need to celebrate that.
Yes, that's awesome.
It's a big accomplishment for me personally. I'm going to pull up these lyrics because I think this will give us an interesting insight. And you can talk into it because you wrote it. So, you started Weren't for the Wind. Was that a title that someone had?
I think it just came out in the room that day.
So it just it revealed itself.
It revealed itself.
And y'all are like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
So when you got to this whole point where it's like, I wouldn't paint me as a heartbreaker, but I've said a few goodbyes. I make a promise, but I know later I'm bound to change my mind depending on whether I'm going. Or hell, baby, nobody knows when. Yeah, if it was a different time, might have been different in a different life. And then you have all these maybes. Maybe this would have happened. Maybe this would have happened. Maybe this would have happened. Find me a farmhouse. Find me a you. Maybe I wouldn't be already gone again if it weren't for the wind. So how did you guys decide to frame this song to get to telling a story that points to that? Like, where would you, like, even if it weren't for the wind, even if it was like, I got cold feet or whatever, like, you have to start thinking about how to get there. For you, are there any lines in here that specifically, like, you're proud of that stand out to you that you felt like really pointed to that?
I feel like the chorus, like in itself, like the maybe that plane would never take off, maybe that dust wouldn't fly out the drive. It's like all wind thoughts. And it's like if it weren't for the wind, none of those things would be possible. And so I think it's just finding those. Yeah, I think it's.
Because you do all these wind things, which is clever, right? So in songwriting, you have stuff that's clever. And sometimes the listener doesn't even know.
Sometimes you don't even need the clever.
Yeah, but it's in the craft. The clever is in the craft. And I think that songwriters that are really good have a way of being able to do things that the listener might not even know. Like me listening to the song, I've never thought about, oh, those are all wind things. Yeah. But emotionally, the way it hits, there's something about it. And maybe it's a subconscious reaction of going, oh, wow, this is making me feel
a certain way without even realizing.
Correct.
It's feeling that way. Yeah.
Which is what you said, which is focusing on the emotion.
Yeah. I always like think of when I'm writing, I'm like, how do I want this song to make me feel? What is what's the feeling I'm trying to emote, essentially? Because
did you have a feeling on this one? Where were you?
It's like a leaving. Like I'm leaving stuff I love behind every time. Like why do I do that? And like I remember when we were writing the song, I had this thought of like my husband was back home, and it's like if it weren't for the wind and me writing songs, I would be at home with my husband. And every time I leave, that's how I feel. Yeah. And I feel like that's the feeling that I felt, at least writing the song. I can't talk for the other writers, but that's the feeling that I felt.
So you were channeling the longing of being gone and out on the road and away from your husband. Because
I'm a homebody. I love being home.
I am too. I've learned that about myself.
I love being home.
That's part of that artist realization probably too. So then you juxtapose the like wind things with these maybe I'd settle down, dig in some roots, find me a farmhouse, find me a you. Because to me, that's like very concrete of what you would do if it wasn't
for the wind. Yeah.
So then you pull it, and I think this is the creative part that people listening to their songwriters need to start like understanding these little things. So you have this very ethereal, windy stuff. Then you pull it into
like reality of the situation. Yeah.
And then the way that the hook hits so hard is that you pulled it into reality, but then you pop back out of it again to basically say, if it weren't for the wind, maybe I'd settle down, dig in some roots, find me a farmhouse, find me a you. So you see this like settled down homebody. But then maybe I wouldn't be already gone again if it weren't for the wind. So you have these maybes, these wind things, wind.
And then what is going on pretty much with maybe.
Yeah. Then what could happen concrete wise, like paint the picture, and then you pull it out and you point, and then it hits really hard emotionally because you just like mic dropped.
Yeah.
Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I feel like that's a fair assessment.
So as a listener, you're like, oh, I like it. Sounds good melodically, has a feel, and it hits when the chorus
And you're not really
hits.
sure why.
And you're not sure why.
Hits,
but like the fun thing is to break this stuff down, because to me, songwriters are so hungry for information to make them better. And I feel like that's a conversation that I have internally with myself and that I have with other people as well. And just like talking to folks, because I get to interview a lot of songwriters and pick their brains, and it's fun. But I'm always wondering, like, what are the little secret sauces? And I think that chorus points it out perfectly. And maybe you guys didn't know it, or did you feel like you knew it when you were writing it?
I feel like we knew when we were writing it.
Okay. So elaborate on that whole thought process.
Like, what do you mean by, like, what do we know? Like what we were...
Like, let's say this is an Instagram reel right now that's posted. And someone's scrolling, and it's like, when we wrote Weren't for the Wind, and it's like the hook, right? Okay. The chorus, as a songwriter, this is how I had to think about it. And you may not realize this as a listener, but these are the things we were thinking. Mm-hmm. So we kind of just talked about it, but if you were to just like frame it and say, this is what we were going for, that's what I want to hear, because that's what is basically the masterclass for the person that doesn't know how to do that.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we were talking about earlier, like, I feel like we've said a lot of it, but like the top of the chorus is, you know, wind things. It's like, okay, if you're writing for Weren't for the Wind and you're brainstorming with your co-writer or whatever, it's like, okay, what are wind things? Planes, dust, you know, those are wind. So then it's like, okay, well, let's start with that. Maybe that plane would take off. Maybe that dust wouldn't fly out the drive. Maybe that tumbleweed. So that's another wind thing. Wouldn't leave every other sunrise. Those are all three wind things. Okay, well, now it's like, well, then how are we feeling? Because now there's no emotion. I mean, I guess there is emotion because those are leaving things too. But why? Why is that such a bad thing to be leaving all the time? Where is that emotion? Well, then the back half of the chorus is the settle down half. And that's what the singer or the listener is probably, I feel like, taking in. And the singer's probably singing like, why can't I settle down? And then you put that in there too. And then you get to the hook, and that's wouldn't be already gone again. Okay, well, she's left again. Why? If it weren't for the wind, there's the hook. And so to me, I feel like it's just, I don't know if I don't want to say like we did it intentionally. We were writing it, because I don't even know if I don't think we were breaking it down like that in our heads.
No, of course not.
But
you're just a songwriter and you do it.
Yeah.
So you know how to do it.
Yeah.
But for the person that doesn't know how to do it, if they can break it down, it's almost like learning a guitar chord.
Yeah.
You're like, I put my finger here and my finger here and my finger here.
This, yeah.
I do this and then I strum. And you do it enough times that you can get on a stage and not have to think about it.
Yeah.
But when you're starting, the mechanics of songwriting, I think, are important, because there's not, I don't feel like a lot of people really spell it out, especially on where their minds were when writing big songs.
Yeah.
You know? Because it just comes naturally, because you know what to do. So you just explained it. Now, how do you go about verses when you have that? Did you go chorus first?
We did chorus first.
Okay. So then you have to write an entire story, basically, or something that points to that. Mm-hmm. So where does your brain go?
For the verses?
For verses.
Well, I think, like I said, like, it just, like, what was the emotion that you were trying to, you know, create is leaving. So it's like, okay, well, how do I, and I don't want to say there's like a right way to write verses or I don't think there's a right way to do any of it. I mean, everybody writes differently. And just like if somebody gave you a title and gave me a title, we're probably going to write it two completely different ways. And so I think verses, I don't really know the secret sauce of how to do it. It's
not a secret sauce, more like, what's your approach, I guess? Like, does your mind just go from the emotion of the chorus that you just wrote, and now you go like, okay, I feel like this is telling me something?
Yeah. Just write the story. I mean, what's the story that you're trying to tell? And then write it.
Okay. So you get to...
And I think there are secret things you can... Like, there's little things... Like, I love to repeat words. That's, like, my favorite thing to do in songs, is to repeat words. And then I also love to come from a chorus out into a bridge. I love doing that, where it connects. And so I think there's things you can... Like, I wouldn't paint me in a different... Like, that where it repeats different 3 times. Like, I love repeating words. And that's something I learned from another songwriter when I first came up. So I think there's things you can, like, learn that you...
So break that down for me. Like, say that whole thing again, because I'm slow.
Like, I think there's, like, if there's...
Repeating. Like, you said repeating words?
Yeah, like, I like repeating, like, strategically. Like, being like, okay, well, I can use different 3 times. why not? Let's do it.
Okay.
And like that's
is that breaking a rule almost?
I don't know.
Because I had to write the other day, and they're like, "Well, you say coast this many times."
Now I don't like doing it I like doing it together, like in back-to-back lines. Okay. I don't like doing it where we say a word in the first verse and then we say it again in the second verse, which sometimes I think that's fine too. But that drives me insane. Yeah. But if it's intentional, like back-to-back lines, like I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Let's do it. Especially if you can use it, like flip it in different ways the whole time.
Yeah. So you like to use the same word in back-to-back lines, but if you were to study songwriting, you would learn that it's not good to use the same word like in the first verse and then randomly.
I don't even think that's a bad thing. Well, I think that's as a songwriter, we read down, like if you're reading it, people are like, oh my gosh, they said blue twice in the first verse and once in the second verse. But I don't think an average listener is like dissecting that while they're listening and be like, can you believe they did that?
But that's how
we're programmed to think.
Correct.
That we're not supposed to do that. But I don't think it really matters.
You don't think it matters. See, that's what I'm interested in. These are the fun little nuggets. So, because if you go study songwriting at Belmont, you're going to learn, like, from what I understand, you're going to learn the rights and wrongs.
Yeah. And I'm bad about calling it out too. Like, we can't do this. And I have to remind myself, nobody's reading these lyrics like we're reading them.
Yeah. So would you say, so for me as a guitar player, I can use this as an example. Mm-hmm. You learn the rules and then you learn how to break them.
Yeah. The right way.
The right way.
Yeah.
So there's rules of songwriting and they're probably learned and not spoken.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I agree. There's rules that you're like in rooms with like, we can't do that. You know, and you're like,
what
are
some of the we can't do that? It's like we just addressed.
I feel like repeating words is like a big, we can't do that.
Okay. And what about like using like super ridiculous, stupid words too? Like,
or like what does this mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like words that you're like, why? Like nobody's gonna know what that means.
Okay.
I feel like sometimes that I wouldn't put like a word that I didn't know what it meant. I don't feel like.
Yeah. What about, so this is a big one that I think I learned was introducing a subject or an idea without ever really expounding upon it. And mm-hmm. then it can take a song in a completely different direction. Mm-hmm. And it's like, why did you put this thing about this heartbreak in a song that has nothing to do with heartbreak, but you did one line about a girl?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking mm-hmm. about? Could you explain
can you give me an example of that?
Like if I was writing a song about going to the Grand Canyon and it was all about me on a road trip. Mm-hmm. And then I wrote a line where I met a girl at like a coffee shop when I was at a diner in the morning and like the sun was rising and we hit it off. But then I never came back and addressed that. And I had just written a line
you just
about,
like put it, that was like part of your trip?
Yeah. But it was like we like hit it off. And then you go throughout the song and you're thinking like, oh, what happened with the girl situation? Like there was an implication that there was something there.
I feel like that all goes back to writing to the hook.
So it wouldn't make sense to the hook to put that in
Depends
there.
on how you use it.
Yeah. But I mean, there's a lot of misuses of random interjections. Yeah. It's like if you were filming.
It's like introducing someone else in a story that doesn't need to be there.
Correct. Yeah, that's what I think is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Do you see a lot of that in songwriters that are not super developed?
I mean, I definitely feel like I used to do that too.
Yeah.
Like put information that was like, does this really need to be in the song?
Mm-hmm. So would you say less is more?
Yeah. I feel like less is more, always better.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, so you got the hook. A lot of people, most of the time in Nashville, are writing from a hook. Not mm-hmm. everybody, but a lot of people. Mm-hmm. You have that chorus. Everything has to point to the hook. Mm-hmm. Then you write your story around that. And again, you're thinking the whole time, is this going to serve
the hook?
The hook.
Mm-hmm.
And that right there, I think, is a huge place for people to start.
Mm-hmm. Also, like I would just say, if we're telling people songs, just read song lyrics too. I feel like that was a big thing. I think we used to talk about doing that too.
Mm-hmm.
Like just dissecting other people's songs.
Yeah. Is there a write that you had where you were like, wow, this is the most influential person that like just taught me some magic thing that I learned in a co-write kind of a thing?
There was a write that I had that probably was like I feel like I learned, like, it was like a pivotal moment where I feel like I learned so much from this person. And like, we only wrote 3 times. And he's like the guy that taught me like repeating words is fine. And like using them in back-to-back lines in different ways is cool. And his name was Randall Clay.
Okay.
And he passed away like a few years ago, but.
Was he an older gentleman?
He was like 40s, like
Okay.
early 40s, late 40s. I don't want to quote his age because I don't really know. But yeah, I wrote with him 3 times. And he was just, his brain just worked in a different way. It was just super creative. And he taught me that rules in songwriting are supposed to be broken. And I just learned so much. Every time I wrote with him, I feel like I'd hardly say anything because I would just watch how he wrote. Because I feel like there was so much knowledge to be learned watching him. And his melodies were awesome. His words were awesome. Just everything about how he wrote was amazing. And
so there was almost just like it's like you get mentored by someone just in the collaboration process of learning how they think.
Yeah. And like I said, I only wrote with him like 3 times. And I wouldn't say like we were close or anything, but I just feel like that was like a pivotal moment in like me feeling like I learned something.
Yeah.
And I feel like every time I walked away from like writing with him, I was better than I was when I walked in. And yeah, it was just like that was, if I could think of one person, that was who it was.
Randall
Clay.
Mm-hmm. Was he a big hit writer?
No, I don't think he had any hits.
Really?
Mm-mm. But he wrote a lot of Ashley McBryde stuff, and he was on that record. And I believe, and the way his brain worked was amazing. And just watching it.
That's really awesome. It's cool when you have someone that, like, I feel like that, like Tom Douglas was like that on my interview.
And you don't expect anything when you're sitting with these people. Like, you obviously know they're creative, and then you just sit down and you're just amazed by, I don't know, just them creating.
Yeah.
And it's a magical thing.
And it sticks with you. And then one day you'll be that to somebody, or you might already
hope to be. Yeah.
How often do you get put on writes with artists? And what's that like in today's world of Nashville? Because songwriters want to write with artists because they want a chance at getting a cut. You're right?
Yeah. I mean, I love writing with artists. I mean, just like I'm sure most songwriters want to write with artists too. I feel like most of my writes are with the artist.
How do you identify a great artist? What do I think? What are the attributes of what you think a great artist is, where you can tell? Like,
I think to me, like knowing, like her being like this person's going to work, is like when they walk in and they're unapologetically themselves and they know what they want to say, they know what they want their whole sound to be like, and they can be like, I wouldn't say that, I would say that. And they work their ass off too, on the road and off the road. And it's just like they live for it. They sleep, eat, and breathe it. And to me, that's what makes an artist, is there's no one like them either. And that's what I look for, is just they know themselves. Because I feel like songwriters get to play so many different characters all the time when we're writing. And then I feel like an artist has to walk in and be like, this is me. This is what I want to say. This is what I want to do.
And that makes it easier on you too, right?
If they know what they want to say and do, absolutely. Because then you know where you're writing, you know what you're aiming for.
Yeah.
Instead of just throwing darts at the wall and hoping they stick.
Yeah. And I want to ask a question, and I want to preface it by saying that anybody that is a well-known artist has put in a lot of work. So that's the first thing I want to say. No matter where they were discovered, some did a more traditional, different path than others. some didn't. Some were discovered on TikTok. Some were just dug out of the clubs. But what's it like when you have someone that was signed super young, TikTok, hasn't played a lot of gigs, hasn't written a lot of songs, but had something that went viral? What is that like as a songwriter? Or how often do you encounter that?
I really haven't had any artists that I'm like, I hate writing with this person.
Yeah, and it's not even about hating writing with them. It's more just like they don't know
like themselves in a sense.
Because they're like, well, do we want to write a song for me or for someone else? Or like they come in and they just don't understand what you just said, which is this is me, this is who I am, this is my sound, this is what I want to do, this is the record I want to cut, and this is what I want it to be like, and this is my inspiration.
I feel like nowadays, honestly, I like writing with artists that know that.
Yeah, that's what you want.
Yeah.
But how many of the like TikTokers, I'm just going to call them, and I'm not disparaging, I'm saying that's like a new venue. It's like the whiskey online, where it's like people show up to see that person. Like it worked and the public spoke. So obviously that was a good song. Mm-hmm. So we can't hate on that person just because their path's different. But when you have that, they're just less experienced in the room maybe because they went straight from like making music in their bedroom to signing a record deal to being thrown in a room with hit songwriters. Mm-hmm. And that for them's got to be overwhelming too, to an extent, because they're like, I don't know how this whole thing works. Like, I don't even know who I am exactly yet because I'm young. I haven't lived a lot of life. I don't have a ton of stuff to write about necessarily. Or maybe you're Taylor Swift and you do. But just for the general, like, let's say, young person that was signed because they are doing really well, have momentum online, have a big following, and know that they can be put with writers and come up with great songs and put them out. Do you have to be more involved in the process of helping shape who they are? Do you feel that?
Like part of like developing what they want to say a little bit more. Yeah, I would say that.
What does that look like?
Like usually you'll probably bring in the idea.
Okay.
Or you'll talk to them and figure out what they want to say and find an idea from that. You know, they're probably not going to bring in, at least in my experience in those rooms, they're not going to bring in like a hook or an idea per se. Like you're going to have to dig a little bit more, or go through your hook book and figure out if there's anything in there that matches what they want to say.
Mm-hmm. And that first write's almost like a first date, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you don't know them and they don't know you. And it's like, okay, I got to like figure you out a little bit. Do you feel like a lot of times in those writes, they are like, I wouldn't say that, I would say that? Or is it more like, I'll say what you tell me to say because you're the hit songwriter?
I feel like now it's like there's more people saying like, I wouldn't say that, or I would say that at least. Like like I said, I haven't really been in a room with an artist that just completely, I'm sitting there and writing the whole thing for them in a long time. Like I feel like that was, I haven't been in that room in a minute. Did
you experience that before you got signed?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I probably was like that in some rooms too, you know?
Yeah.
Especially when I first moved to town, I was like, what is co-writing? How does that work? I mean, I can't imagine blowing up on social media and then everybody's like looking at you being like, oh my gosh, you're a superstar now. And then you get thrown in a room with random people you've never met. And then you're like,
and there's imposter syndrome. Yeah, like I would be very nervous.
I would have probably mental breakdown and be like, what am I doing?
Yeah. So I think we have to have a lot of compassion because one of the things that I've really started to believe in, and I have a negativity bias in life that comes from survival instinct. Mm-hmm. And so it's easy for me to like sometimes see things and be like, that's dumb. I do too. You know?
Yeah.
But my logical grounded self, and my wife helps me with this, is like, hey, you need to be positive. One of the things I'm learning more and more and more is just being stoked for people when they're successful.
Yeah.
How important is that?
I think it's super important to celebrate other people's success because, I mean, they worked just as hard or dreamed of having that just as much as you did. And I mean, it would suck if you got somewhere and then people were like, how did they get here? Why do they deserve that? And it's like, I wouldn't want somebody doing that to me and begrudging my success or hating me because I got somewhere or whatever that looks like for other people. But I mean, I think it is common. I think jealousy is a human emotion.
Yeah.
And it's easy to feel that.
And it's something we have to fight.
I'm not going to sit here and say I've never felt that because I definitely have.
Yeah, of course. We all have. I remember this. This is a great example for me. And this is someone who might show up on my Spotify list of top people I listen to. But when Bailey Zimmerman first came out, I remember being like, who's this young person that's blowing up, and why are they blowing up? And it was more, not even like hating, but like asking myself, like, I'm just curious how this works on the back end of the label side.
Yeah.
That this person is where they're putting their money. Or whatever happened. I don't know the story. But for me, at face value, I was like, I know a lot of talented people, but why is it this person? You know?
I think it's so easy to do that too.
Yeah, it is. And so, but then, like, the more I've listened, and then I saw him open for Morgan Wallen, and then he's got that song with Luke Combs, that backup plan or no backup plan.
Yeah.
Like, I love that song.
Great song.
Me and Haley love it too. It's just like a good like motto for life that I think that everyone needs at this time. It just hits. But now I'm a fan.
Yeah.
And I started as a kind of critic. And that's just like my pride or ego or being in my 30s and seeing someone young and being like, oh, look at that.
My husband's helped me a lot with that too. Like just being like, don't compare yourself to, compare yourself to people that are like the Michael Jordan. Compare yourself to like Michael Jordan. Or compare yourself to people that you can't even touch because there's so much, they've done so much more than you. Compare yourself to those people because that's who you are wanting to go for. That's what all these people are. They're all wanting to get to that same level and be just as successful. And so it's like, he's like retrained my brain to just be like, don't compare yourself to people that are at your level or doing the same thing as you. Compare yourself to the people that are the goats of what you're doing.
That's smart. What else? Let's talk a little about that because your husband's in the business. Is it weird being married to someone that's in the business?
Not really.
Is it helpful?
It's we can talk. Like he don't have to explain myself to him or like he gets what I'm doing and it is helpful because I can get home and complain about something he knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, he gets it. Do you play your songs for him? Yeah. And does he listen to them as a publisher?
He listens to them, and I know which ones he doesn't like.
Does he say he doesn't like them?
No.
That's
but I know.
Yeah.
He's quieter on them.
He's like, yeah.
He's like, I like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
But the ones that are really good,
he says he loves them. That's his love and like are
his
telltale.
It?
Yeah. That's his telltale signs.
I have a friend that never said, he just says.
He's very positive all the time too. So he won't say he hates something.
And what does he do at Combustion?
He's publisher and A&R there.
Okay.
And we like dreamed of doing a company together one day too. So.
Oh, you totally should. What would you call it?
We're still thinking about it. So, but we'll see.
Well, that's exciting. Yeah, man. And I'm stoked for you too to be married and have settled down.
Yeah. It's crazy. Got married in November.
How is it?
It's great. It's awesome. We got 2 dogs. Live in Bellevue. It's awesome.
2 dogs. What else?
Got a baby on the way in December.
Woo!
December 31st is the due date. So
December 31st.
Found out today, literally before I came in here, that it's a boy. So,
are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear that earlier.
Yep. We're stoked.
Were you hoping it was a boy?
I just wanted to be healthy. A part of me was like, girl. And then I found a boy and I was like, okay, that's sick.
That's exactly how I was.
Yeah.
I was afraid of having a boy because of some trauma I experienced as a kid. And then I almost felt like it was like God being like, I'm going to help heal your trauma. Yep. So we're going to give you a boy. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
I'm just glad that's healthy. That's what I was.
That's the big thing.
Yep.
And like, I love having a son. You're going to love it.
I'm stoked.
But he's like way going to be attached to you versus dad.
Mama's boy.
Oh, yeah. He is going to be a mama's boy. And that's going to change your songwriting, I bet, too.
I feel like even now it's like not changed it, but just a new like perspective, like you were saying, and without even having him yet. It's like it gives you a whole new purpose for doing things.
What's it like?
It's not just for yourself anymore.
Yeah. Because you're carrying a human being in like your body.
Yeah.
What is that like for you? I'm a dude, so I've never experienced that.
I know when I first found out, I was like, it kind of felt like when I was telling my mom, I was like, oh my God, am I in high school telling my mom that I'm pregnant? Like it kind of felt like that still because I still feel like a kid sometimes. But now it's like, okay, I've settled into it and I don't know, I'm so excited. Super sick the first couple weeks, and then now I'm fine.
I got nothing but respect for women after watching Haley go through it. Because it is so freaking hard on you, like physically, mentally, spiritually, like on all the levels. Like I don't think we understand until you walk through the process of seeing someone give birth and seeing like that whole journey from conception to delivery to your whole first year of that baby being completely reliant.
Yeah.
It's like such
I think props to the dads too, because I'm like praising my husband for putting up with me for this first.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, props to the dads.
Yeah.
Did I get props? Yeah.
Yeah, you put up with a lot.
I did.
Remember you said I was
pretty rough.
during pregnancy.
Yeah, I think you were.
Yeah.
I think I blocked it out.
I'm sure he will too.
All I know is that, like, it's been the best. It's been the best thing for us, right?
Oh yeah, it's the best. Love it.
Yeah, I love it. And then, yeah, you just grow to love this little person, and then all of a sudden, your life is like not about you anymore, and you're less selfish, and it's hard, but it's also amazing, and
just gives whole new meaning. And
yeah,
I feel like that. Yeah, I can't wait to.
Because that's the stuff that truly matters. Back to that cosmic reality. It's like all the podcasts I do or whatever happens with me in my career and you in your career at the end of the day, it's like you're going to be leaving your DNA, your legacy, your
It's
child.
like almost like gives you like a perspective like God's love almost a little bit. And
yeah.
Like I don't even have fully grasped that feeling yet of holding my baby, but I can't imagine. Like
what's been interesting to me is like discipline. Like in the Bible, it talks about God disciplines the ones he loves. And like having to discipline my son. Even
probably breaks your heart too.
It breaks my heart. But I also am like, I have to do this because I love you. And sometimes I feel like God's let things happen in my life that were like, these are going to develop, this is going to develop you and turn you into the person you're meant to be, but it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
And as a father, I feel like when I have to discipline my son, it's like, I'm doing this because I love you and I don't like doing it and it's going to hurt, but it's also going to make you into the person that you're supposed to be. And it's this really interesting parallel between understanding God's nature and him and his image and being created in his image to being a father. And like, it's just an interesting thing. It's an interesting dynamic. So I'm stoked for you.
Thank you. We're
because you got a kid on the way. You're married now.
It's crazy.
And I think like one of the things that you said earlier was important, which was like having the grace for yourself too in this season to not have to feel like you have to write every day.
Yeah, it's okay to not. And that's also like shown me if I don't write one day, my career's not going to implode and go away.
Yeah.
It's still going to be there.
And if you have a good team or people on your side, they're going to want what's best for you too. You know, like you're going to be your best writer if you're loving yourself.
Yeah.
You're going to show up for your family the best if you love yourself, show up in the room the best if you're in a good headspace, I think. So that's really important. Last piece of advice. for the younger you? I think this is one of the things I like to ask, but and we've referred to it a bit, but like I go back and I think of us sitting in me and Haley's 1-bedroom apartment downtown, and me and you just sitting writing songs, and you would do like 2 a days, and you were just busting your butt. And if you could go back and you could really just like sit down with that Joybeth and be the Joybeth that you are, and you're in the driver's seat and she's in the passenger seat, and you're just like parked looking at waves at the ocean, and you're like going to bestow some piece of information onto her, what would you tell her?
I think like goes back to, I think I've already said this in this interview, but like just enjoy it. Like, because there were so many moments that I feel like I wished away because I was wanting to get to where I wanted to be rather than just be where I was at. And like I'd look back and I had so many fun times I didn't realize were fun and that I would never have again, you know, now that I'm here. Like living with my best friends and living with all guy roommates, my best friends in the world. That was like the best time ever. And I will never do that again. And one of them doesn't live here, or 2 of them don't live here. And then one of them comes back and forth, you know? And so, and then living with, you know, Trey, Ella, Matt, and like, I should have enjoyed that time more. It's just, there are just so many times that I would like, feel like I wished away, not wish away as in a sense of like, I wish I wasn't there, but I just was always looking forward rather than like being where my feet were. And I feel like I wish I could have told myself to just, I mean, that goes back to my whole life. Just be where your feet are and don't try to hurry up your life. Just enjoy it because you don't get it back.
Yeah, it's really the, I guess, theology of mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
Of just being in the moment.
Yeah.
Being present.
Just being more present than trying to be in the future and have anxiety of being in the future. And
yeah, that's a great piece of advice.
That's what I would just tell myself. Because, I mean, like we were saying earlier, what's going to happen is going to happen. As long as you're doing the best you can every day, then the rest is out of your control.
Yeah. Well, I just want to acknowledge you for busting your butt. It's been cool to see your journey, and breathtaking to hear that you wrote the most songs. Like when I heard that, I was just like, wow. Because people don't see that, you know. You can follow someone online and watch their stuff, but when you just have your head down and you're grinding, like, and you're not bragging about it either. You're just showing up and doing it is really impressive, and it's inspiring. And it's really like, all of a sudden now I'm thinking like Joybeth's the Michael Jordan of Sony songwriting outside of Ashley Gorley in terms of just showing up and just doing free throws or whatever they call it.
I feel like I'm still just shooting. Practicing.
Yeah. But you're showing up and you're practicing and you're putting in the extra reps outside. And that's really, it's exciting to think about where you're going to be in like 5 years, 10 years, and the next decade. Like,
it's just been cool to, I mean, even like you kept referencing being in your 1-bedroom apartment, just being there, us being there, and then just how far both of us have grown and come from.
And neither of us would ever imagine like this.
No.
I
don't think we ever would have imagined that.
I don't think so. Well, thank you, Joybeth. If people want to follow you, where can they go? On
Instagram,
the gram?
On the gram.
What is
Joybeth
it?
Taylor.
Joybeth Taylor.
Yep.
And do they have a playlist for you yet on the Songwriter Hub?
On Spotify, yeah.
So people can go listen to songs you've written?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll have to put that in the show notes so people can listen.
Sick.
And then they can study your lyrics and read them.
There's probably better ones.
No, man. I tell you, Weren't for the Wind, I listen to it way too much. And it legit annoys Haley. Like, you've been like, can we listen to another song? And so I love it. Yeah, you really killed it on that one. And I know you've got some more with her too. You have a bunch of cuts with her. So you're just a badass. Things are just getting started for you. So
thank you.
It's an honor to have you while I can get you.
I'm grateful. that you asked me to do this.
Well,
broke some fears.
Hey, well, we'll I'm glad that you made it through, and it was fun, and we'll be praying for a healthy baby.
Thank you.
For you, and a smooth sailing, great delivery, all that
Easy.
stuff. Yeah, it's gonna be great, and I'm excited next week. I don't know when this comes out, so you'll have a number 1 by then, and the world will know. So you'll have a plaque on your wall when your baby's born. Maybe 2, who knows?
I don't know.
You're too humble. All right. Thanks, Joybeth.
Thank you.
Bye.
This is the Stephan Hogan Podcast.